She stares at me in stony silence. Stress and tension mark his face. They don't look at each other. He raises his eyebrows and shrugs as if to say, I don't know where to begin. The silence is thick and solid. It's pierced only by the ticking of my clock. This is going to be a challenge. I can feel it in my bones. I begin to doubt myself already. Honestly, I don't know why I'm here, she spits out. Actually, I do know. It's for the sake of the kids. If we do this therapy, then I can tell my kids, I tried everything. The let's do therapy to say we tried. Strike one against our chances to make it. She feels far gone to me. He's in a different place. Look, I get where she's at, but this relationship, it's been too bad for too long, and I want to try to make this work. I don't want to get a divorce. 45 minutes into session, she still won't look at him. Dr. Irwin, do you want to know why therapy didn't work the first time we tried? Because while we were in therapy, he was cheating on me. This man has cheated on me since I met him over 25 years ago. Why should I think it's going to be any different now? Why should I trust him? Would you trust him? Seriously, woman to woman, would you? As much as I would like to dodge this question, I know that it's one that I have to answer. I lean in, closing some of the distance between us. Miranda, if I were you, I'd probably be saying the same thing. Of course I wouldn't trust him. It makes a whole lot of sense to me why you're filled with doubt and a lot of anger. And in fact, maybe it feels incredibly risky to trust anything that he might say. She seemed satisfied enough with my answer, but she clarified this last point. It's not just risky, it's terrifying. Right, I said to her. I start to get a feel now for all of the hurt, anger, and fear running through this woman before me as she's faced with the possibility of repairing a relationship with a man who has hurt her deeply since she met him. Miranda, it's downright terrifying to imagine trusting him just to get hurt all over again. I offer to him, Jeff, I imagine it's quite difficult for you to show up here knowing that what you say and do will be met with a lot of scrutiny and understandable anger from your wife. Yet you're here, and you're still willing to try. And I hear you. You don't want to lose your wife. Tears spring to his eyes, his throat swallowing hard the lump that has formed. What's happening right now? I ask, curious about this softening in the room. I just gotta try, his voice cracked. Whether she can believe me or not, I want to try to make this work. We have a lot of work to do. Over the next several sessions, I learn more about their relationship, and I learn that it's been one plagued with this vicious cycle of lies and betrayal, of turning away from one another, substances by her, women by him, to soothe the hurt that they couldn't share. They didn't know how to share with one another. I learned that despite this anguish that they've been living in, there's a bond there and a deep caring for one another. I learn a little bit about them as individuals. Jeff shares his story of basically raising himself. His father left him and his mother when he was 2, at which time, for all intents and purposes, he lost his mother as well to depression and alcohol. Jeff learned in these formative years, you can't count on the people that should be there for you. You get comfort and care wherever, whenever you can get it. His survival depended on it. Miranda shared her story, of being raised in a family with a mother that beat her for the sake of beating her, and a father whose rage turned against her mother on more occasions than she cared to remember. The message that Miranda got: I'm not worthy of love. Expect the ones that love you to hurt you. Don't confront anyone. The world is a dangerous place. I sit before two people who have been deeply wounded over the course of their lives. Can I possibly walk alongside them and not do further damage? Should I tell her, run for the hills, cut your losses, you can't trust this man? What if she takes the leap of faith and she trusts him and he betrays her all over again? I find myself feeling protective of her. And do I dare ask him to be vulnerable and open and share about his loneliness in this relationship just to risk being filleted by his extremely angry wife? But then I see his longing to stop this vicious cycle of lies and betrayal, and her need to be seen by him. And that's what takes the lead. So we go for it. Whenever I work with couples, I want to know what gets in the way of being able to turn and share with your partner the hurt that you feel in the relationship. And it was no exception here. Miranda says, Dr. Irwin, I am so afraid that if I show him how I hurt inside, he won't care. And in fact, he'll just turn around and blame me like he always has. And I will be alone again. It's much easier to just be mad at him. Jeff offers, the truth is, I just feel like a failure. I feel like a failure. And yes, I turned to the arms of other women. You know, it was like, even if it wasn't real, I could pretend like somebody liked me, even if I felt like Miranda couldn't, or hell, I couldn't like myself. But the truth is, I just hate myself for hurting the only woman who's ever stood by me. So I reflect this back to them, trying to organize what I've learned here. So Miranda, what you're saying is, I can't show him my pain. I am so scared that he won't care and I would be alone again. And that would be unbearable. It's much safer to be mad at him. And Jeff, you're afraid that if you let yourself see the way you've hurt your wife, you would just drown in hating yourself. It makes sense to me, guys, how you've gotten stuck in this place. You'd both be stuck alone, isolated, and drowning in self-hatred. We land together in this very tender spot. Over the next several sessions, Jeff and I work very hard on helping him come forward in the relationship, to be able to hear about Miranda's experience and her pain. He speaks of showing up for her in a way that he's always wanted to, but never been able to. He even starts to tap into his own needs and his own experiences in the relationship. His needs to be good enough in her eyes, to be accepted by her. I think he might be ready to be there for her. I feel this mixture of hope, excitement, and a little bit of fear as we're on this new frontier of possibility in the relationship. So Miranda and I start to dismantle just a little bit of that angry exterior armor that's kept her so safe. And she taps into a deep well of hurt. I ask her to turn and share just a little bit about this hurt with her husband. She screws up her courage. She takes a deep breath, and she turns to Jeff, and she shows him exactly how and where it hurts. And what happens? Exactly what we all feared would happen. Jeff begins to defend himself, albeit a gentler version from that of the past. But he begins to say, no, Miranda, you don't understand. It's not that I didn't want you. It's that you didn't want me. You weren't there for me. Oh, Oh, my heart sinks, and I think to myself, you did not just say this, Jeff. No. This was your chance to do it differently. I look over at Miranda, and she ices over and grows cold. Our plan, my plan, backfired. Her worst fear was just confirmed. If I show him my pain, he won't care, he'll blame me, and I will be alone again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Together, we made sense of what happened in that moment when it felt like it all exploded in our faces. Together, we made sense. We saw together how hard it was for Jeff to see how he'd hurt his wife. And for him, defending himself was defending against being a monster in her eyes. After several sessions of understanding this, of exploring, of anger, of feeling hopeless, there was a crack of light. Tears welled up in his eyes, his body trembling and his voice shaking as he turned to Miranda, and he began to speak almost directly from the heart, and the words began to flow. And he says, "Miranda, I am so sorry for how I hurt you. You never deserved to be treated that way. I always had a choice in how I handled things, and it wasn't your fault. I always tried to blame you. I wasn't there for you then, but I'm here now, and I'm so sorry." She sits, stunned. I think she stopped breathing. I think I stopped breathing too. She takes a moment to let the words filter through her. And then tears. And her body just collapses, like all that external hard scaffolding keeping her together was just gone. And she begins to weep. My own eyes sting with tears, and big tears rolling down his cheeks. He reaches over and he holds her hand, and she lets her hand be held by him. I feel a profound sense of privilege to walk alongside them in this moment. After a few minutes, she looks up at me. She takes a deep breath and she says, "Dr. Irwin, I don't know if I will ever get over all the years of pain that I have felt. But for the first time, I feel hope. Hope that it won't always hurt so bad." And then she turned to him and she said, "Thank you." And he squeezed her hand. We take a huge risk to be seen, to put our hearts in another person's hands, with no guarantee that our risk will be rewarded. And then there's this exquisite moment when our pain is touched by our precious other, and we're no longer alone. We know that we matter, and that makes all the difference. Thank you.